The air inside Cooper Steelworks didn't just smell bad, it had weight to it. It pressed down on your lungs like wet cement, tasting of burnt hydraulic fluid, ozone, and the sweat of 180 men who knew exactly what their crushed fingers were worth according to the workers' comp chart. For 19 years, that taste was my breakfast. I'm Garrett Williams, 47 years old, and until about an hour ago, I was the director of safety operations at this rust bucket cathedral of fire. Before this job, I spent 8 years in the Marines, and let me tell you, nothing the Corps threw at me prepared me for trying to keep grown men alive when some MBA princess decides safety regulations are just suggestions. I always clocked in at 5:30 a.m. Always. The sun hadn't even thought about rising yet, but the steelworks were already screaming. The floor vibrated through the soles of my Red Wing boots, a hum that settled deep in your bones. That vibration was the heartbeat of the plant. If it skipped, I knew. If it raced, I knew. And lately, thanks to the new management, the whole place felt like it was about to blow a gasket. I started my morning rounds near the number 3 press. It's a monster capable of exerting 6,000 tons of pressure, turning solid steel into automotive parts like it's squashing beer cans. I saw Shane Foster, a shift foreman who looked like he'd been carved out of beef jerky, bypassing a sensor on the safety gate. He had a screwdriver jammed in the latch. "Foster," I barked. My voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the noise like a chainsaw. "You got a death wish, or are you just trying to see how red you can paint the concrete today?" Shane jumped, nearly dropping his wrench into the moving die. "Garrett, Jesus, we're behind quota. The sensor's acting up. It trips if you look at it wrong. It trips so you don't get turned into hamburger." I walked over and yanked the screwdriver out. The machine ground to a halt. The sudden silence that filled the bay was the most expensive sound in any factory. "Log it, tag it out, fix the sensor. If I see you rig this again, I'm not writing you up. I'm walking you out." He glared at me, wiping grease on his coveralls. "Ashley ain't gonna like the downtime, Garrett. She's already riding my butt about the output metrics." "Ashley can ride whatever she wants," I said, zip-tying a red Danger. "Do not operate tag onto the controls, but she can't ride a press that's covered in your intestines. Fix it." Shane walked away shaking his head, but he'd fix it. He always did. That was the mood lately, though. Tension thick enough to choke a diesel engine. Ashley Cooper was the problem. Old Man Cooper, the founder, had been a hard case, but he respected the work. He knew safety regulations were written in blood, usually the blood of guys named Lefty or Stumpy from the 1970s. But the old man stepped down last month. He handed the keys to his granddaughter Ashley, fresh out of Northwestern with an MBA and about as much real-world experience as my teenage daughter. Ashley was 29, wore suits that cost more than my truck payment, and looked at the workers like they were malfunctioning equipment. She'd never touched a wrench in her life, but she sure knew how to read a profit margin. Now here's the thing about steel works. You have to respect the danger. The machinery doesn't have morality, it has physics. If you disrespect the physics, you die. It's that simple. But physics wasn't Ashley's problem. Her problem was spreadsheets and investor calls and making this quarter's numbers look better than last quarter's numbers. I headed up to the catwalks. From up there, the factory floor looked like something Dante forgot to write about. Sparks showered down like golden rain from the welders in Bay 2. Forklifts zipped around like angry beetles carrying loads that could crush a car. It was beautiful in a terrifying industrial way. I loved this place, but I respected what it could do to you if you got careless. I made my way to the chemical storage area to check the ventilation logs. As I walked, I saw a puddle of hydraulic fluid near the main aisle, a slip hazard waiting to happen. I grabbed a bag of absorbent granules and dumped it, kicking it around to soak up the spill. While I was doing that, my radio crackled. "Garrett, this is Clay at the main gate. We got a situation." "What kind of situation, Clay? Did the raccoons get into the dumpster again?" "No, sir. It's Ashley. She's trying to bring in some kind of photographer. Neither of them are wearing PPE." I sighed, the sound rattling in my chest like loose gravel. On my way. I marched to the front. There she was, Ashley Cooper. She looked like a stock photo of business success came to life and started drinking expensive coffee. Standing next to her was some guy holding a camera the size of a rocket launcher. Ashley was wearing heels. Heels. In a steelworks. "Garrett," Ashley flashed a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. "Just the buzzkill I wanted to see. We're doing some shots for the new website. Modernizing the brand, capturing the raw energy. Ashley, I said, crossing my arms. He can't be on the floor without steel toes, safety glasses, and a hard hat. And neither can you in those shoes. Ashley laughed. It was a dry, dismissive sound like paper tearing. Relax, Garrett. We're just going to stand by the yellow line. We're not touching anything. Don't be such a dinosaur. The yellow line doesn't stop flying metal, Ashley, and it doesn't stop a forklift from sliding on oil. PPE or he waits in the lobby. The photographer shifted nervously. Ashley's smile vanished like a blown fuse. Her eyes narrowed to slits. "This is my plant, Garrett," she hissed, leaning in. She smelled like expensive perfume and entitlement. "I'm trying to bring this rust bucket into the 21st century. Stop throwing red tape at me every time I try to breathe." I stared her dead in the eye. It's not red tape. It's the law. And it's my job. If he goes out there, I'm logging a violation against executive management. The air between us crackled with tension. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, not the precision gears of a Swiss watch, but the rusty, grinding gears of an ego that had never been told no by someone she couldn't fire on the spot. Well, she thought she couldn't. "Fine," she snapped. "Get him a hat. But Garrett, we need to talk later, about your adaptability." "My calendar's open," I lied, knowing full well that calendar was about to become permanently clear. As they walked away looking like tourists in a war zone, I felt a cold knot forming in my gut. This wasn't just a clash of styles anymore. This was a countdown timer, and I was the only one who could hear it ticking. The all-hands meeting was held in the shipping bay because it was the only place big enough to hold 180 angry, tired people without starting a riot. Ashley had ordered a stage to be built, an actual stage. Wood risers, a podium, the works. She even had a banner printed that said, "Cooper Steelworks, building tomorrow faster." Faster, I whispered to Lance Murphy, the union steward standing next to me. Lance looked like a fire hydrant with a mustache. That's a great word to see in a place where fast usually means you keep your thumbs. "She's going to cut break times, Garrett. I can feel it in my bad knee," Lance grumbled, spitting into a coffee cup. Ashley bounded onto the stage like she was hosting a game show. She was wearing a headset microphone. The feedback screech made half the room wince. "Good morning, Team Cooper," Ashley yelled. Her voice echoed off the corrugated metal walls, sounding hollow. "I know change is scary. I know you guys are used to the old ways, the slow ways, the safe ways." She actually made air quotes around the word safe. My jaw clenched so tight I could have cracked walnuts. "But the market doesn't care about safe," Ashley continued, pacing the stage like a caged animal. "The market cares about lean. The market cares about speed. We're bleeding money on protocols that were written when disco was cool. Effective immediately, we are implementing the Velocity Initiative." She clicked a clicker and a PowerPoint projected onto a bed sheet hung over a forklift. It was a graph with an arrow going up. Groundbreaking stuff. "We are streamlining inspections. We are reducing idle time between shifts. And we are installing the new Titan Max 4200 air compression system." She laughed at her own cleverness. Nobody else did. A murmur went through the crowd like a wave. Installing a 4,200 psi air compressor system in record time wasn't ambitious. It was suicidal. You need concrete to cure. You need pressure testing. You need vibration analysis. "Any questions?" Ashley asked, daring anyone to speak. I raised my hand. I didn't wait to be called on. 4 days doesn't give the foundation concrete time to cure, Ashley. If you pressurize a system like that on wet concrete, it'll blow the lines right through the wall. Or through the break room. Ashley sighed into the mic. It sounded like a massive, amplified deflation. "Garrett, always the ray of sunshine. We're using a new quick-set polymer compound. It's expensive, but it's fast. This is what I mean, guys. We have to stop thinking about why we can't and start thinking about how we will." She looked at me with a pitying smile. "Safety is important, Garrett, but profit is survival. Don't be the anchor dragging the ship down." The meeting ended with polite, terrified applause. The kind you give a pilot who just announced the landing gear is stuck, but it's probably fine. But get this. That afternoon, the contractors for the compressor arrived. They weren't our usual guys. Our usual guys were expensive, union, and slow because they were thorough. These guys pulled up in unmarked vans. They looked like they'd been hired from a Craigslist ad that said, "Must own wrench. No questions asked." I walked over to their foreman, a guy with a neck tattoo that said, "No regrets." "I need to see your welding certs, crane operator licenses, and your confined space entry permits," I said, clipboard ready. The guy laughed. "Talk to the boss, lady. We're on a waiver contract." "There's no such thing as a waiver for gravity," I snapped. I stormed up to Ashley's office. Her secretary, Crystal Garcia, a nice girl who always looked like she was on the verge of tears, tried to stop me. "Garrett, she's on a call with the investors." I pushed past her. Ashley was spinning in her chair, feet on the desk, talking into a headset. "You hired cowboys to install a pressurized bomb in the middle of my plant," I said, slamming my hand on her desk. Ashley didn't flinch. She just held up a finger, finished her sentence. "Yeah, tell them we're ahead of schedule." She hung up. "Garrett," she said, examining her cuticles like they were the most fascinating things on earth. "You're being dramatic. Those guys are specialists. They're hacks, Ashley. I saw them rigging the crane with a frayed cable. If that compressor drops, it's $2 million in damage and probably 3 funerals." Ashley stood up. She wasn't tall, but she got on her toes when she was angry. "Then watch them. That's your job, isn't it? Babysit. But do not, I repeat, do not stop that work. If that line stops, you're costing me $35,000 an hour. Are you writing me a check for 35 grand an hour, Garrett?" I leaned forward, my voice dropping to that tone I used on Green Marines who thought they knew better than their drill instructor. "I'm trying to save you from manslaughter charges. Get out," she said, turning her back. "Go count fire extinguishers. Leave the business to people who understand business." I walked out. The door clicked shut behind me like the sound of a rifle bolt sliding home. Something inside me had shifted. Not broken, shifted. Like tectonic plates finding a new position. I went back to my office, a glass box overlooking the floor. I sat down at my desk and opened a new folder on my computer. I named it Insurance Policy. Then I opened my email client and started typing. Not to Ashley, to myself. I started logging everything. Time, date, conversation, specific violation codes. Listen to this. There's a saying in safety. If it isn't written down, it didn't happen. But there's a darker truth to that. If it is written down and you ignored it, you're screwed 6 ways from Sunday. The next 3 days, I became a different kind of safety director. I stopped yelling at the guys to fix minor infractions. Instead, I became a photographer of the apocalypse. I used my company tablet, the ruggedized one that could survive a drop from a crane. I walked the perimeter of the new compressor installation, Ashley's Velocity Initiative project. It was a disaster in slow motion. The quickset polymer they poured was bubbling like a science fair volcano. Bubbles in a foundation mean air pockets. Air pockets mean weakness. When that compressor system pressurizes to 4,000 psi, that foundation is going to crumble like stale cookies. I took a photo. Click. Timestamp 9:14 a.m. Note, visual evidence of improper curing outgassing in base slab. Cited violation of ASME B31.3. I saw the specialist contractors welding the pressure lines. Their beads were sloppy, looking like worms having seizures. Undercut, porosity. It was garbage work that wouldn't hold 500 psi, let alone 4,200. I zoomed in. Click. Timestamp 10:45 a.m. Note, pressure line weld integrity compromised. High risk of catastrophic failure. I didn't stop the work. Ashley had given me a direct order. Do not stop that line. Okay, boss. I won't stop it. I'll just build the autopsy report while the patient is still breathing. My office became a war room. I printed emails. Every time Ashley sent a snarky reply like, "Stop worrying, Garrett. We have insurance," I printed it. I highlighted the timestamp. I filed it in a binder I called the Book of Ashley. Now here's where it gets interesting. On Tuesday, I was in the break room getting coffee when I saw the company calendar on the bulletin board. Someone, probably Crystal, had pinned up the monthly schedule. There it was, written in red marker. Wednesday, State OSHA Compliance Audit. But someone had taken a black Sharpie and crossed it out, writing rescheduled in big, aggressive block letters. I stared at that calendar like it was a winning lottery ticket. You can't just reschedule a state OSHA audit because you feel like it. You can ask for an extension, sure, but if you don't get confirmation, they show up anyway. and the state office is notoriously bad at checking their voicemails. I went back to my desk and logged into the state portal. I had a login from my days serving on the regional safety board. I checked the status of our audit. Status: confirmed. Inspector: Dustin Brooks. I knew Dustin. We'd worked together back in the late 90s when he was a rookie inspector and I was cutting my teeth in the Marines reserves doing weekend safety gigs. Dustin was a by-the-book guy. He measured guardrails with laser micrometers. He didn't take bribes and he didn't take excuses. Ashley hadn't rescheduled anything. She'd probably just told Crystal to call them, and when Crystal got a voicemail, Ashley assumed it was done. Classic MBA move: delegate the problem and assume it disappears. I could have told her. Could have walked into her office right then and said, "Hey, the state is coming tomorrow and they're going to shut us down if that compressor isn't up to code." A month ago, I would have. I would have fought to save the plant, save the jobs, save Ashley from her own stupidity. But then, I looked at my email. A new message from Ashley. Subject: Uniform Policy Update. Garrett, I noticed you wearing that ratty Carhartt jacket on the floor again. It looks unprofessional. Please switch to the branded polo shirts immediately. We need to project a clean image. I looked down at my jacket. It was stained with grease, singed on one sleeve from a spark 3 years ago, and stiff with grime. It was also flame-retardant Nomex. It was armor. The branded polo was 100% polyester. If that caught fire, it would melt into my skin like napalm. She wanted me to wear plastic in a steelworks so I'd look professional. I closed the email without replying. I looked back at the portal. Status: confirmed. "Okay, Dustin," I whispered to the screen. "Come on down. I'll leave the light on for you." Wednesday morning brought the circus. Ashley had invited a group of potential investors, 3 guys who looked like they owned vape shops, and a woman who was scrolling TikTok while walking through a steelworks. I'm not making this up. I was doing a final check on the emergency eye wash stations when I saw them approaching the Titan Max compressor. The cowboy contractors were grinding welds, sending showers of sparks flying 10 feet in the air. The noise was deafening. Ashley was leading the pack, shouting over the noise. She wasn't wearing hearing protection. Neither were her guests. I intercepted them with my box of spare PPE. "Ashley," I shouted, "you need these. This is a high-noise area and there's overhead crane movement." Ashley stopped and looked at her friends, then at me. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd detach a retina. "Guys, this is Garrett," she said, shouting to be heard. "He's our safety enthusiast. A bit of a relic from the old regime." One of the vape shop guys chuckled. "We're good, Pops. We're just passing through." Pops. The word hit me like a slap. This kid couldn't have been more than 25. "Put the hats on," I said, my voice flat as hammered steel. "And the plugs. OSHA regulations require—" Ashley stepped forward, getting in my personal space. She grabbed the box of earplugs from my hand and tossed them onto a nearby workbench. "Garrett," she said, her voice dropping to that dangerous, quiet tone she used when she wanted to feel like a big shot. "We are in a non-active transit zone. I designated it myself this morning. These are my guests. You are embarrassing the company." "Non-active zone?" I pointed to the grinder showering sparks 3 feet away. "Ashley, that is active hot work. Physics doesn't care about your designations. I care," she snapped. "I care about showing these people a modern, frictionless facility, and you are friction. Look at you, you're scaring them." She gestured to my outfit, my coveralls, my grease-stained gloves, my battered hard hat covered in safety stickers from 19 years of keeping people alive. "This is what work looks like, Ashley. It's dirty, it's dangerous, and if that crane up there slips a gear, which it might because you cut the maintenance budget, your friend there is going to be wearing a 2-ton motor as a hat." The woman looked up nervously at the crane. Ashley's face turned purple. "That is enough. Go to your office. Now, do not come out until I tell you. If I see you on this floor again today, you are done. Do you understand?" Done. The floor went silent except for the grinding. The workers nearby, Shane, the crane operator, the guys on the press, had stopped working. They were watching. They knew. They knew I was the only thing standing between them and disaster. I looked at Ashley. I looked at her smug friends with their expensive shoes and their complete ignorance of what 6,000 tons of pressure could do to the human body. And I realized something. I couldn't save them. Not like this. As long as I was here acting as a buffer, Ashley felt safe. She thought she could push the limits because Garrett would catch it. I was her safety net, and she was using me to perform acrobatics over a pit of spikes. To save the plant, I had to remove the net. Understood, I said. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just touched the brim of my hard hat like I was tipping a cap to a lady. I walked away. Shane gave me a subtle nod from across the floor, a look of grim solidarity. He knew what was about to happen. Back in my office, I sat down at my desk. My hands were steady as granite. I pulled up the schematics for the Titan Max one last time. I checked the pressure relief specs. Ashley had ordered the standard relief valves. They were rated for 2,800 psi. The system ran at 4,200 psi. It wasn't a question of if it would fail, it was a question of when. I picked up the phone and dialed the external engineering firm that had validated our specs, the one Ashley had fired last week to save money. Hey Jim, it's Garrett at Cooper Steel. Just wanted to confirm for my records that you did advise against the standard relief valves for the 4,200 system. Yeah, I thought so. Thanks. I hung up and added that note to my log. Then I opened the email draft I'd been working on for days. The resignation. It sat there blinking at me like a cursor waiting for a command. To Ashley Cooper. CC. Board of Directors, Legal, HR. I hovered over the send button. Not yet. I needed one more thing. I needed to give her enough rope to hang herself with. Thursday morning. The day of the audit that Ashley thought she'd rescheduled. I was in my office drinking coffee that tasted like bitter irony when the door exploded inward. Ashley stood there holding a stack of binders. My binders. The standard operating procedures I had written, refined, and enforced for nearly 2 decades. She dropped them on my desk with a thud that shook my coffee mug. We're going lean, Ashley announced, breathless and manic. I was up all night reading these. Do you know how much redundancy is in here? Wait 3 minutes for pressure equalization. 2-man verification for valve opening. It's bloat, Garrett. Corporate cholesterol. She tapped the stack with a manicured finger. I'm tossing these. We're implementing a digital streamlined checklist. 1 page. Fast, efficient. I looked at those binders. Those pages were stained with 19 years of sweat, coffee, and hard-won knowledge. Some had notes in the margins from Old Man Cooper. Page 47 had my handwriting from when I figured out how to keep the boiler from overheating in the summer of 2008. Those regulations are written in blood, Ashley. My voice was barely above a whisper. That 3-minute wait? That's because in 1998, a guy named Steve opened a valve too fast and the steam took the skin off his face. That bloat is why you still have a workforce. Ancient history, Ashley yelled, her voice echoing off the office walls. We have sensors now. We have automation. You are clinging to the past because it makes you feel important. You're a hall monitor in a billion-dollar industry. She leaned over the desk, her face inches from mine. You're obsolete, Garrett. And honestly, I'm tired of fighting you. You're fired. The words hung in the air like smoke from a blown fuse. You're fired. I stood up slowly and reached into my pocket. I pulled out the master key ring, heavy janitor-style ring with 30 keys. Keys to the high-voltage cages, the chemical lockers, the lockout padlocks, the emergency overrides. You know what these open? I asked. Doors? She scoffed. Give them here. They open the cages that keep the electricity from arcing. They open the valves that control the suppression system. They aren't keys to the building, Ashley. They're the keys to the beast. I dropped them on the desk. They hit with a heavy metallic clatter that seemed to echo for longer than it should have. It's your beast now, I said. Ashley snatched them up like a trophy. About time. Now get out. I have a compressor to pressurize. I grabbed my personal stuff, the Carhartt she hated, my coffee mug, a photo of my daughter at her high school graduation. I didn't touch the binders. I didn't touch the computer. You might want to check your calendar, Ashley, I said as I walked to the door. I know my schedule, she shouted at my back. I stopped at the door frame and looked back one last time. Down on the floor, Shane was watching. He saw me without my hard hat, saw the box in my hand. He took off his own hard hat and held it against his chest, a silent salute from one working man to another. I nodded to him. Stay safe, brother, I thought, because Daddy's about to learn what happens when you fire the babysitter. Goodbye, Ashley, I said. Yeah. Close the door, she muttered, already texting someone. I walked to the lobby. Crystal was crying at her desk. Garrett, I heard. I can't believe... It's okay, Crystal, I said, patting her shoulder. Do me a favor, take your lunch break early today. Like, in an hour. Go to the park. Stay there for a while. She looked confused, but nodded. Okay, Garrett. I walked out to my truck and sat in the driver's seat. I pulled out my phone and opened the email I'd been crafting for days. The one with all the attachments, photos of the compromised foundation, audio recordings, violation logs. I added one more recipient, Brooks, d@state.mi.us. Subject, formal resignation and notification of imminent hazard, Cooper Steelworks. I hit send. Then I drove to Murphy's Diner, 3 miles down the road. You're early, hun, Heather the waitress said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Plant blow up? Not yet, I said, but give it an hour. At 10:45 a.m. my phone started buzzing. Text from Shane. Holy crap, state truck just pulled in. Guy who looks like a pissed-off bulldog. That was Dustin Brooks, right on time. He's walking onto the floor, cut the lock with bolt cutters. Ashley is screaming at him. Classic Dustin. If you don't let an inspector in, he assumes you're hiding bodies. She poked him in the chest. Oh God, you never touch an inspector, ever. That's assault on a state official. Cops are moving in. He's putting a red tag on the main breaker. Whole plant's shut down. A red tag on the main breaker means the entire facility is unfit for human occupancy. Game over. It's quiet, Garrett. Ashley's crying. Actually crying. The silence meant the danger was over. No pressurized death trap, no exploding compressor. I'd saved them all by walking away. 10 minutes later, trucks started pulling into Murphy's parking lot. Shane walked in first and threw his arms up. The king! He bellowed. The diner erupted. Guys clapping, shaking my hand. It was the retirement party Ashley never would have given me. You missed it, Garrett, Shane said, sliding into my booth. Brooks tore her apart, cited the foundation, the welds, everything. And get this, Ashley's going to court for interfering with a safety official. My phone rang, a 212 area code, New York, the board of directors. Garrett, this is Wade Patterson, chairman of the board. We have a situation. I'm aware, Mr. Patterson. Level 1 safety shutdown. Ashley says you walked off without notice. I have a time-stamped email where Ashley fired me for refusing to ignore safety violations, plus audio. Would you like me to send that to your legal department or the Cleveland Plain dealer? Long silence. We need you back. Name your price. 20% raise. Director of operations, full authority. And Ashley gets reassigned to something that doesn't involve heavy machinery. Done. Just please come back and talk to Brooks. I didn't go back that day. I went back the next morning. Dustin was waiting by the front gate, looking tired but satisfied. Took you long enough, he said. Pie was that good. The foundation was Swiss cheese, he told me. Core samples showed massive air pockets. If they'd pressurized that system, it would have been catastrophic. I walked onto the silent floor. The Titan Max sat surrounded by yellow tape, a monument to corporate stupidity. My phone buzzed. Email from Wade Patterson, Director of Operations and Safety. Full autonomy. Name your salary. I looked down at Shane, who'd snuck in to help clean up. He gave me a thumbs up. Triple rate for remediation work, I typed back. New PPE budget for everyone. And that Tesla charger gets ripped out for a proper break area. They accepted in 3 minutes. It took 3 weeks to tear out that compressor and foundation. Another month to do it right. We lost millions in revenue, but nobody died. Nobody lost a finger. When we finally pressurized the Titan Max properly, safely, with proper curing time and real engineering oversight, the sound was perfect. A low, steady hum that said professional work done right. Standing there on the catwalk, listening to that beautiful mechanical heartbeat, I thought about what it all meant. 27 years since I left the Marines, 19 of them spent in this place. I'd seen guys lose fingers, watched steam burns take skin off faces, pulled workers from under machinery that should have been locked out. The thing about safety work is it's mostly invisible when it's working. Nobody notices the accident that didn't happen, the life that wasn't lost, the family that didn't get a phone call at 3 a.m. You're only noticed when you fail, or when some MBA decides your precautions are inefficient. But sometimes, if you're patient enough and document everything, you get to see justice work. You get to watch physics and bureaucracy team up to remind people that reality doesn't negotiate with quarterly projections. Ashley was gone now, probably ruining some tech startup. The red tape she'd complained about? It was the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. I pulled out my phone and called my daughter. "Hey, sweetie, how's college treating you?" "Good, Dad. Hey, I saw on the news about your plant. You okay?" "Better than okay, kiddo. Your old man just remembered why he does this job. Safety first, then everything else." I put the phone away and went back to work.